Why can't nuclear be part of the technological options for the next 30 years?
Well, we'll see what happens down the track. But right now, there's a moratorium on nuclear here in Australia, and the Labor Party are totally opposed to it. And I'm just not going to put Australia through the argument, which doesn't get us anywhere because the moratorium isn't lifted, and for the Labor Party to run around at the next election and get themselves elected on the basis of a scare campaign. I mean, that's just what would happen. I mean, I'm not about to hand the Labor Party that sort of an opportunity. They're opposed to it. They don't ever want to consider it, they say. But I think if Australia is to move ahead, just as my predecessors, and going back many years now, have always said that in the Liberal and Nationals, unless there's a bipartisan commitment to this, then it'll be too difficult to proceed with at this point. But, we'll see what happens down the track. There'll be a lot of developments in this space that are occurring overseas. Small modular reactors, within the next decade, I expect to see them in the United States. They've done environmental approvals for those. So we'll watch all that very closely. But we have no intention of lifting that moratorium. We believe we can get to net zero by 2050 through this technological plan, and that's the way we've set ourselves.
Now, we know that there's a fistful of polls, probably a pile of polls that'll say, got to do something, want people to do more, all the rest of it, right? But equally, there's a fistful of polls that say people aren't willing to pay anything to do it. So what do you say to people watching tonight about what the cost is here? Either the cost of transition 20 years away, about a job that exists now that won't exist in 20 years. What do you say about the cost of a power bill, the cost of the money to the budget to help prop up technologies? Because the truth is this can't be done without any cost, but give us an idea about the sense of cost that you see beyond 2030.
Oh, I can tell it what it is right now. And the low emissions technology roadmap, which sits at the heart of how we achieve this, is a $20 billion investment over the next decade. And that will draw into it, because it's a partnered investment program, between about $60 and $100 billion from the private sector and other participants. And that is what will fuel, which will drive the technological development and things like hydrogen and batteries and carbon capture and storage. I mean, right now, in the Parliament right now, we are trying to change the law which enables us to invest in carbon capture and storage, which is what is called a negative emissions technology, which will continue to support the way that we use fossil fuels right now, whether they be coal or gas, to ensure that they continue to provide reliable power in this country. Now, the Labor Party is voting against that. They've voted against it 7 times. So we've just got a practical view about this, Paul. This is a practical problem which needs a practical solution. I've been in this place 15 years, and people have been arguing about this for the last 15 years. And I've heard people screaming at each other from both ends of the spectrum. We're all going to be ruined either way. And, I think most Australians just want to deal with this, to deal with it in a no-fuss way, to not shut things down and take people's jobs away from them. They understand the world's a complex place and things are changing around the world. Australia deciding to do net zero by 2050 is not going to change that. But the changes that are taking place around the world will still happen. And I'm just not going to let that happen to Australians. I've got a plan to protect them and to help them go forward. And, you can trust the Liberals and Nationals for an economic plan to deal with this. I mean, the environmental issues are very important. But what really matters now is who's got the best economic plan to deal with this? Who do you trust at the end of the day to have an economic plan that can help navigate us through this very challenging period, especially in rural and regional? Trust the Labor Party, who every time they get the opportunity, they'll just regulate you more and put more taxes on you? Do you trust others who are just going to shout from the sidelines and shout at the clouds? Or do you trust people who've been able to manage a strong economy,